Miss Legia here. I am going to start with Unit 5, Week 2 Wonders, a continuation from yesterday. We are going to read our paired read, The Picture Palace, with that genre of historical fiction, continuing on with that. And then behind me are the vocab words that we went through yesterday. So if you remember, we had the vocab word assume, meaning to take for granted. Guarantee, to make sure or certain of something. Nominate, to choose someone for a position. Obviously means in an easily seen or understood manner. To rely is to trust and depend. Supportive, provide approval, aid, or encouragement. Sympathy, to understand the trouble someone else is having. And then weakling, a person who lacks physical or moral strength. So we are going to continue with these vocab words while we read our paired read. Chapter 1, The Call of the Movies. Frank and Joey were arguing about movie heroes. It was a well-worn theme, but one of which they never tired. Tarzan could not beat King Kong, scoffed Joey. King Kong is much stronger. But Tarzan is a human, so his brain is bigger, said Frank. He'd find a way to tame King Kong. They came around the corner and stopped to gaze at the huge billboard across the street for Call of the Wind, starring Clark Gable. We have to see that movie, said Joey. But obviously, to see the movie, they need tickets. And for tickets, we need moolah, Frank said gloomingly. These days, money was hard to come by. Frank could remember back before the stock market crash in 1929, 6 years earlier. He was 7 then, and things were very different. He and his parents lived in a big house with a yard out back. Dad ran a factory and often came home at night with candy in his pockets or flowers for Mom. Then the crash came, and the factory went out of business. Dad lost his job, and they all had to sell the house. Dad ended up working 3 days a week in a department store. It was low pay, but Frank knew they were much luckier than some. Joey didn't talk about it much, but Frank knew that at least twice this year, Joey had come home to find his family's belongings piled out on the street, and the locks changed because the rent wasn't paid. We need a money-making plan, said Joey. Frank spotted a woman up ahead selling fruit on the sidewalk. We could sell things, the way the Apple Annies do, he suggested. What would we sell, genius? Asked Joey scornfully. He pointed out a man washing a shop window. What about washing windows? Do you think your mother would lend us some buckets? Frank grinned. Miss Fisher next door might. I heard her telling Ma that you're as cute as a bug's ear. Frank sprinted off down the street with Joey hard on his heels, eager to box Frank's ears. So a stop and check down here asks, what are Joey and Frank trying to earn money, or why are they trying to earn money? And I'm going to let you stop and think for a minute. Why are they trying to earn money? Okay. The answer to that question would be that they're trying to go see a movie. They are arguing about movie heroes, and now there's another movie coming out that is a heroic type of movie, and they really want to go see it. But remember, times are tough right now because they had the stock market crash in 1929. Chapter 2, Shirley Temple. Frankie's little sister, Marie, was waiting in the hall when he arrived back home with Joey. Want to play jacks, Frankie? She asked her brother hopefully. Frank's heart sank. He loved playing with Marie, but the last thing he wanted was for Joey to think he was a weakling. Remember, vocab word, weakling. I'm busy, he said impatiently. Joey and I are looking for jobs. Mary's lip wobbled. To Frank's surprise, Joey dropped onto the hall rug and scooped up the jacks. I'll give you a game, he said, but you have to go easy on me. I'm a beginner. He winked at Marie and scattered the jacks expertly. Frank hovered for a minute, but Joey and Marie were absorbed in their game. Frank slouched into the kitchen. A few moments later, the door opened and Marie skipped in with Joey behind her. "Joey and Frankie are getting jobs," she announced. Ma raised an eyebrow at Frank. "Just part-time," he explained hastily. Ma disapproved of kids quitting school early to earn money. "We need money for the movies. Call of the Wild is playing." "With Clark Gable," Joey added. Ma's expression changed completely. "Clark Gable?" she said dreamily. "Well, I guess that's okay then." "Is Shirley Temple in it?" Marie asked. Shirley Temple, the little tap-dancing curly-haired movie star, was Marie's heroine. Marie insisted on her fine straight hair being wound up in rags every Saturday night in a futile effort to get curly like Shirley. "Have a jelly sandwich, Joey," said Ma. She ran a worried eye over Joey from his hand-me-down shirt with its fraying collar and his shoes with cardboard coverings and holes in the soles. "In fact, take 2, she said. That evening, when Dad came in to say goodnight, Frank said, "I was thinking about how many folks have lost their jobs and their homes. Is it wrong to want money just for the movies when all that bad stuff is happening?" Dad shook his head in sympathy. "Don't worry, son," he smiled. "Movies remind us that dreams are still possible, no matter how bleak things seem," he added. "As long as we have enough to live, you can assume that I approve of your earning money to go to the movies." That vocab word, assume, as well. A stop and check down here is, why is Frank worried about spending money to go to a movie? I'll have you stop and think for a minute. So the reason why Frank is worried about spending money is because he knows that there are a lot of people in trouble during this time. A lot of people don't have homes, they don't have jobs, and he's thinking to himself, well, wait a minute, why am I spending or trying to earn money to go to movies when there are people who are going hungry? However, his dad reminded him that during tough times, it's okay to long for something or work towards something that's going to make you feel better, okay? Because if you feel better, then you're going to feel more willing to help other people as well, okay? Chapter 3, Washing Windows. Getting work was hard. Frank and Joey knocked on doors for an hour without any success. No one wanted to pay to have their windows washed. "Everyone is as broke as we are," said Frank. "You're right. We're asking the wrong people," said Joey. "We should be across town where the big houses are." It was a tiring walk across town, but Frank didn't complain. He was determined to prove he was a guy Joey could rely on. They stopped outside a big Brownstown, and Joey rang the bell. A woman answered. "Morning, ma'am," said Joey brightly. "We are admiring all your windows, and we said, maybe, with our service, they could look even better." Frank nodded vigorously, trying to look supportive of his friend. "Actually, a fellow cleaned the windows just last week," the woman replied. The boys' faces fell. "Why don't you try across the street?" she suggested. "I don't think he's been there yet." The boys were knocking on a door across the street when a gruff voice shouted, "Hey!" A large man carrying a bucket hurried towards them. "This is my block! Beat it!" Frank was scared, but Joey yelled back, "Don't blow your wig! You don't own the street!" The big man advanced. "I've got mouths to feed. Take a hike." They hesitated and then took off in a flash. When they got back to their own part of town, they stood staring at the movie billboard again. "We'll never see that movie," Joey said gloomily. They were interrupted by a cry. A man with a briefcase had collided with a boy on a bike. The briefcase went flying, scattering papers across the street. Quick as a flash, Joey sprinted after them, snatching them up as they whirled in the wind. "You're fast on your feet," the man said gratefully as Joey returned the papers. "I bet you'd be hard to beat at bank night." "What's bank night?" Frank asked. "It's a competition at the Palace Theater," the man explained. "You put down your name, and if they pull it out of the box, you have 60 seconds to get up on stage and claim a $5 prize. There's no guarantee that your name will get chosen, but if it were, I bet you'd win easily." "A 5 spot," Joey breathed. What do you say to that, Frankie? Frankie shrugged. What do we have to lose? You shred it, Wheat, agreed Joey. Bank night, here we come. The boys arrived at the Palace Theater early on bank night, but there was already a long line. Frank had been to the palace before, but the gold statues and elaborate decorations still took his breath away. At the ticket booth, the young man barely glanced at them as he rapidly wrote their names on slips of paper and inserted the slips through a slot into a locked box. The boys joined the throng of people crowding into the theater. Inside, they surveyed the crowd and frowned. They had thought that the hardest part would be getting their names pulled out, but the theater was already full with people jostling in the aisles. Getting to the front in 60 seconds would be hard. The boys squeezed in and waited nervously. The lights dim and the organist played a fanfare. A spotlight lit the stage. The theater manager stepped out carrying the box from the ticket office. He put it down beside a large clock. Welcome to bank night, he shouted. The crowd cheered. You know the drill. If I call your name, you have 60 seconds to claim your prize. I'll try 3 names, and if no one wins, no prize. He unlocked the box with a flourish and pulled out a slip of paper. The organ music swelled, and the crowd fell silent. Bob McNeil, shouted the manager. He hit a button, and the big clock started ticking. A bearded man leaped up and began to struggle toward the aisle. People tried to scramble out of his way, but the clock reached 60 seconds before he got halfway to the front. The crowd sighed with disappointment. The organ thundered again, and the manager drew another name from the box. Joey Mitchell! Joey looked stunned. Frank shook him and shoved him into the aisle. Run! He yelled. But Joey could not get through the press of people. Go low! Frank shouted. Joey dropped and began to worm his way through the sea of legs. The clock ticked relentlessly. 45, 46, 47 seconds. There was commotion at the front of the theater. 52, 53 seconds. Then Joey scrambled to the edge of the stage and hurled himself at the manager's feet. The crowd went wild. Frank whooped and whistled, but the manager frowned and shook his head. No kids, he shouted, adults only. Frank felt sick. They had come so close. Then a voice from the front called, but his name was in the box. Give the kid the prize, another yelled. The crowd began to boo. I don't make the rules, the manager said, but the crowd was chanting now. The kid gets the prize. The kid gets the prize. The manager glared for a moment, then reluctantly pulled a crisp $5 note from his wallet. He gave it to Joey, and everyone cheered. Outside the theater, Joey shook his head, looking dazed. I still can't believe it, he said. It's enough for the movies and still plenty enough left over to help at home. He looked seriously at Frank. Thanks, Frank. I nominate you for best pal ever. Hey, Speedy, a voice called. They turned to see a man with the briefcase. I said you were fast, he clapped Joey on the back. I have a proposal for you. I'm in the newspaper business, and a boy as quick as you would make a great paper boy. What do you say? An hour a day, 6 mornings a week? It pays $1 a week. Joey nodded, lost for words. The man wrote down an address. See you Monday, Speedy, he said. 6 o'clock, don't be late. $5 and a new job, Joey said as he and Frank walked home. This might be the best day of my life. Okay? So, I'm running out of time, but this story is really, really good to think about that historical fiction genre of, it was a historical time, a real historical time. People were really struggling back in the 20s. However, these characters aren't real. That's where the fiction part comes in, okay? So I will continue to work through our vocab words in a later video and that compare and contrast skill that we were working on yesterday. All right, tune back in.